Welcome to Clone Brewing, the YouTube channel where we homebrew clone recipes of major commercial beers. Today we're going to be brewing a juicy banger, Beavertown's Gamma Ray, as taken from Craft Beer for the People, a Brewdog book, but it's a Beavertown recipe. It's also a beautiful day here in Ireland, so I'm going to brew outside. It's such a nice day. So first, let's take a look at the recipe in the book. We'll input the ingredients into Brewfather, and then we'll have some footage from the brew day. Looking at the recipe in the book, we are looking for an ABV of 5.4%, an IBU of 45, and an original gravity of 1.051. It describes the beer as big, hoppy, and fresh, a perfect example of a hop-forward pale ale. Juicy American hops added in ever-increasing amounts at the end of the boil and in the fermenter give huge flavour and aroma to this modern classic. So this beer is going to be a 20-litre batch. We're targeting, as I mentioned, that original gravity of 1.051 and a final gravity of 1.010. We're looking for an EBC of around 16. And the ingredients that's recommended is 4 kilograms of extra pale malt, 210 grams of Cara malt, and 120 grams of Cara Gold. In terms of hops, it's recommending 7 grams of Columbus at the start of the boil for your bittering hop, and then 8 grams of Columbus at the end for flavor, 8 grams of Mosaic, 8 grams of Bravo, and also 8 grams of Amarillo. All of those at the end of the boil for your flavor. And then in terms of dry hops, we're looking for 52 grams of Citra, 42 grams of Amarillo, and 16 grams of Calypso, and all of those to be dry hopped at 20 degrees Celsius. The mash temperature is recommended as 66 degrees for 70 minutes, boil time 60 minutes, and then fermentation between 19 and 21 degrees Celsius. And then in terms of yeast, we will be using Fermentis US 05. Moving across to Brewfather, when we input those ingredients across, the 4 kilograms of extra pale malt, I'm using crisp extra pale, 210 grams of Cara malt, also from crisp, and 120 grams of Cara Gold, again, also from crisp. When I input those, you'll look up at the top here, you'll see it's giving me an ABV of 5.8%, which is obviously a little bit above what the recipe recommends, but the recipe does also recommend 1.051 original gravity. So need to understand where we're going wrong there. And it seems like Brewfather is suggesting that I'm going to hit a final gravity of 1.007. In the recipe, it's 1.010. I'm a little bit skeptical if I'm going to get down that low with US 05 yeast, but look, let's just see where we go with that. I would be surprised if we get down as far as that low with the final gravity. The EBC is also a little bit lower than what's recommended in the recipe. It was 15 in the recipe. It's showing at 8.1 here. A couple of other things to take note of. We've adjusted our batch size to 20 liters. Just make sure you have that correct, and the boil time is set to 60 minutes. When I input the hop ingredients that are recommended, the only change I've made in here is I couldn't find Calypso, so I've changed that to Yule Melon. Again, I just googled what was a good substitute for Calypso, and this was one that was recommended here, so I'm sticking with the same amount of 16 grams. However, with these hops, you'll notice up here we're only getting an IBU of 14, and we're aiming for 45. So I'm going to use this adjustment tool here in Brewfather to scale this up to 45 and see what it'll give us. The only thing it really changes is the first bittering hop. So it's changed that to 22.9. We'll call that 23 grams at the start of the boil. All the other figures have stayed the same here. If we look down at the yeast, as we mentioned, we're going to use Safale US 05.
Primary fermentation was recommended between 19 and 21, so we're going to go in the midpoint there of 20 degrees for approximately 10 days, and then we'll cold crash just after that. Of course, we can see how fermentation goes. That could be a little bit earlier or later than that, depending on how things go. The next thing to look at is the water profile. So for this beer, as always, I'm going to use reverse osmosis water. I'm going to look for a target profile, probably of hoppy, I would imagine. We'll dial that one in there and save. And I'm also going to dial in the style here as American Pale Ale. So once we've added those two targets to our beer, we're going to click the auto button here. It's going to tell us what we need to add into our mash and our sparge. And we're going to save those adjustments to our recipe. So that's calling for 1.36 grams of calcium chloride into the mash, 2.62 of Epsom salt into the mash, and 5.13 of gypsum into the mash. And then into your sparge, you're looking for 1.24 calcium chloride, 2.38 of Epsom salt, and 4.66 of gypsum. In terms of water volumes, then, we're looking for 14.33 litres of mash water and 13.02 litres of sparge water, giving us a total water volume of 27.35 litres. So now that all the planning is done, let's get brewing. So we started the brew day outside. It was a lovely day. It's cooled down a little bit now. It's about 8 p.m. in the evening. So we're nearly up to the end of the boil. I missed out on some brew day footage because a friend called over. So we missed out on the sparge and the first top edition. But overall, it's been a really good brew day, no issues. So the next step is to attach the counterflow wort chiller for about 5 minutes. Then take that off again, add our final hop additions at 0 minutes, then we will whirlpool for 2 or 3 minutes and then let settle for 10 minutes for all the hops to hopefully form in a comb at the end of the kettle, and then we'll transfer into the fermenter. Okay. So that's the end of the boil. We've been recirculating the
wort around the counterflow wort chiller for the last 5 minutes or so. So I'm going to detach this now, do a whirlpool for 3 minutes, let settle for 10, and then start the transfer into the fermenter. Current rate of transfer is around about 19 degrees Celsius, so it's more or less perfect. It's sitting around about 20 degrees Celsius in the fermenter at the moment, so more or less perfect. I'm just going to take a sample now. I did forget to take a pre-boil gravity reading, but this should let us know where we're at. So we are looking for an original gravity of 1.051, and I make that more or less bang on, maybe 1.052, just 1 point above where we were aiming for. Transfer is now complete, so all that's left to do is pitch the yeast. Yeah, really good brew day. We'll be back here probably in maybe around 7 days or so once fermentation is complete, hopefully, to add the dry hops. So sanitized my scissors. We are currently sitting at 19.7 degrees Celsius, which is perfect for pitching. Just dump that right in there. Seal it up, and Bob's your uncle. Really can't wait to try this beer. It smells delicious. So we'll see you back here in about a week or so. Quick update on where we're at with this beer. So it's day 10. On day 7, fermentation had showed to be completed. It finished out at 1.007. So my early prediction of us not hitting that number were incorrect. So overall we finished at 5.9% ABV, well above what the typical Gamma Ray recipe should be. So next step, after 7 days, we dry hopped. Then after 1 day on dry hopped, I decided to start the cold crash yesterday. The reason for that is I'm actually going to enter this beer into a competition. So I was under a little bit of time constraints. So we've started the cold crash yesterday. We've got it down to 4 degrees Celsius. And now today, after 24 hours, we're going to transfer into the keg. I'm going to use the keg as essentially a bottling bucket. So I've already added my sugar solution, 109 grams of table sugar, into my keg. I'm going to pressure transfer from the fermenter into the keg, and then I'm going to move the keg into my kegerator and use the tap cooler system to bottle my beers under pressure transfer or counter pressure transfer. So that's where we're at the moment. We'll show you some footage of the bottling in a couple of moments. So the beer is in the keg with the sugar solution. It's hooked up to the kegerator. I have all my bottles washed and sanitized. My caps are sitting in a Star San solution. So the next step is to hook up the tap cooler system. To hook up the tap cooler, we first must connect the tap cooler here up to CO2 supply. So connect that through the John Guest fitting, and then connect the tap cooler into our tap like so, and turn on our gas supply. So that's that connected up. If I press the tap cooler, you'll hear some gas coming through there. So we are more or less good to go. First step is to insert the bottle up over the stem here and push this right the way down, and then push the bottle up into the sealant at the top here. We're going to purge this with CO2, and you can hear that coming out. So it's pushing the CO2 or pushing the oxygen out of the bottle, and then we start the pressure transfer. That's way too fast, so I'm going to slow that down. You can slow it down using the gas pressure release here, so it's really slowing that down. And there we go, first one bottled. As I mentioned, the reason why I'm bottling these beers rather than leaving them in the keg is I'm going to be entering them into a competition. I'm leaving myself a little bit short on this. The competition's in a week's time, so I have to hope that those beers are going to carbonate within the week before they're going in front of the judges. But what I'm going to do is potentially put them in my hop cupboard or hop press for the next day or two until I need to submit the bottles, and then just hope for the best that over the next week or so they will carbonate up to the required 2.4 volumes of CO2. Well, it's time for the taste test between the Beavertown Gamma Ray and the Clone Recipe. I'm sure you're all dying to hear about how this beer did in the competition that we entered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it up on screen now, some of the feedback that the beer received. As you will recall, the beer was a little bit green as we submitted it. We only had a week worth of carbonation before the judging day. So to try to get around that, the first 2 days after bottling, I had placed the beers in a hop cupboard that normally sits at above room temperature, maybe around 23, 24 degrees, in the hope that that would kickstart the carbonation process. And then I had to submit the beers. I don't know really how they were stored after that. So the result of that was some people essentially got good beers and others didn't get so good beers, and that's evident in the feedback. So let me read out that feedback as we pop it up on the screen. The first one here is a really good feedback actually. Great yellow straw colour with excellent clarity, small head with poor retention, high hop aroma with a mixture of citrus, melon and some pine notes. Great fresh hoppy smell to this beer. Hops are carried through to the flavour with a high hop flavour present. Low levels of biscuit and bready malt flavours noticeable in the background after the hop flavour subsides. Bitterness is high and it lingers into the finish. The beer does seem to venture into the IPA territory rather than a pale ale with its high bitterness. Smooth texture to the beer, low carbonation coupled with poor head retention would suggest it's not carved up just yet. Overall, a great beer to drink. I would definitely buy this one in the off license. So that kind of review I felt was fairly good and spot on. The next one looks great, super clear, light golden amber colour, white head with good retention. So strangely, this is one of the beers that did get good retention. I thought the aroma and flavour were subdued, with just some bitterness and not the overall hop character I would have expected coming through. Number 3, poured pretty flat, low level cheesy hops, a little sweaty sock hops, old hops, very low carbonation, no head. Flavour is like the aroma, old hops with a little pear and a little paper. With some fresh hops, this could be great. Number 4, nice aroma, not dark enough for the 22B category. A little undercarbed, very little head, good beer, possibly in the wrong class. Number 5, initial aroma of butterscotch on the nose. Not major, but it hides the hops for me. Lovely pale, clear beer, holds head well. Flavour, more so of an American pale ale. Again, some butter, but the hops come through a lot more. Just needed to clean up a little bit. Not sure about American strong, but definitely an APA territory flavour-wise. I'll clarify that there. This beer was actually entered as an American strong pale ale, so that's where the categorization of that review comes from. Number 6, aroma somewhat muted but citrusy, maybe some melon too, some oxidization, appearance straw to golden colour, small lacy head, flavour quite bitter, taking over the malt completely, but pleasant on the finish. Oddly, I can get some noble hop flavour. Mouthfeel, somewhat astringent, probably from the hops, bit of hop burn too, low carbonation overall. I think this veers too much towards bitterness with a little or no malt present. Number 7, good clarity, nice head, bright fruit aromas from the hops, melon, peach, nice juicy flavour. The Amarillo stands out at the front, good bitterness, body carbonation, very enjoyable. Number 8, not getting much hops on the nose, light bready malt aroma, clear straw colour with white head that dissipated quickly, a bit undercarbonated, nice bitter hop flavour, well balanced. Number 9, poured beautiful gold with frothy white head, didn't last long but decent there. I got a hit of tropical and citrus on the nose with low caramel. Over time it balanced out. Flavour wise, I definitely got the dry bitter finish I wanted. Seems very well balanced, nice carbonation too. So interesting, as we get down as far as number 9, some people have got good carbonation, but a lot have got very little carbonation in theirs. Moving on to number 10, slightly undercarbonated, small head, big bubble, no significant aroma coming from it, a tad of hop burnt. I think it needs some time to mature and round up the flavours. Unfortunately, this bottle seems to be oxidised. Number 11, bronze with speckles of froth, orange rind, apple, sweaty, buttered toast, pine, grass, round, too young, showing both diacetyl and acetaldehyde at the expense of the hop flavour. Also shows signs of excessive dry hopping. This could well mature into a nice beer in a few weeks, but it's too rough to enjoy right now. Again, I think that is fair. It was a very green beer when we submitted it and probably didn't have enough time to round out the rough edges on there. And then the final one, aroma, gammy smell, apple, appearance, nice blonde, close to the original, clear head, a bit lacking. Flavours, a bit on the hot side fermentation wise, IBU too high for a clone. Mouthfeel feels within the range for the ABV, but the fusels are too present. So overall, a mixed bag in terms of the reviews of that beer in the competition. I feel like some of them were spot on in terms of the beer was just a little bit too young and didn't have enough time to carbonate, and that was always a risk entering this beer. I think one of the reviewers had suggested probably needs a little bit of time to round out the rough edges and a little bit of time to mature. So essentially it's been 4 weeks since bottling day, so we're going to give it a taste test now in 4 weeks, and hopefully it's rounded out the rough edges. So we'll begin with the Beavertown Gamma Ray, an American pale ale of 5.4%. And the clone. Good hiss off the bottle anyway, so it seems like it's carved up. Yeah, definitely good level of carbonation there, I can see by the bubbles that are coming through. So, initial first impressions. I'm gonna hold those both up to the light. Little bit cloudier. The actual Gamma Ray is a little bit cloudier than the clone one. So I've used some gelatin to clear out my own one when I was cold crashing. So very clear on the clone version, slightly cloudy on the actual Gamma Ray. I would say in terms of colour, I know that the light can be affecting what you're seeing on the screen at the moment. They're fairly similar in terms of colour, that light straw golden colour. I would say the clone perhaps slightly on the darker side, but not too much difference between the two. I'm going to actually swap those around to see, does the light make a difference there. So also good thick white frothy head on both, so good in terms of the overall appearance of the beer. For a copy of the two, they both seem very, very similar. Okay, so to try the Gamma Ray first in terms of aroma. So definitely tropical, citrusy type aroma of the Gamma Ray. A little bit of melon in there as well. It's really nice aroma. And then from the clone recipe, again, very, very, very tropical, but slightly different as well. So I'm getting much more of that melon type flavour, less of the citrusy. But overall, a really attractive aroma of that as well, but not quite the same. So let's go for the taste. First, testing the actual Gamma Ray. Yeah, the flavour really comes through, similar to the aroma on that, really tropical, citrusy, good medium body, well carbonated. It's a lovely beer. Really, really nice, refreshing beer. Okay, so definitely no problems with the carbonation since we've waited 4 weeks with this one. Still hints of tropical coming through on that, but again, it is more subdued than the actual original. I would say the malt character is coming through a little bit more on the clone. Yeah, the hop character of the actual Gamma Ray is much more prominent. This one is much more subdued. It's still there. It's still that light tropical, but there's a little bit more malt flavour coming through. A little bit of that kind of bready malt character coming through on this. But again, I would say good medium body, well carbonated. So the issues that came through on the competition are not present in this beer. I don't get what some people got in the competition, any levels of oxidization or any of that kind of buttery flavour. Maybe it's just my unsophisticated palate, who knows, but I don't get that. To me, it's a really nice drinkable beer. So, overall impression. Like a lot of the clones that we tend to brew, and maybe it's wrong to call them clones, but like a lot of these clone recipes, the hop character does tend to be more prominent in the actual beer. I find a lot of the beers that I brew, they don't capture enough of the hop character. They're a little bit more subdued. But overall, still really nice drinkable beers. Would you tell the difference apart between the two of these? I think any experienced drinker would definitely tell the difference apart, but they are similar beers as well. So overall, some similarities, but enough difference between the two to what I think would lead to one to tell the difference between the two. So not excellent clones, good kind of maybe not twins, but maybe brother and sister beers here. So overall, really nice beers. I've really enjoyed brewing this one and entering into the competition. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please like and subscribe for more great content coming your way very soon. Thanks for watching.